Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Rahul Maura and this session is on the Cisco Voice Infrastructure. What are the components we have in voice environment and what type of architecture we have in voice, right? So I will give you the brief on that. And before that, I believe some of you must have some basic information of the call manager, how it works, what are the components. And this session is mainly for the architectural diagrams, like what type of solutions we can provide to the customer in case if they have new office or they are going to expand their office, or how we can solutioning the requirement of the customer, right? So let's begin with the session. These are the main these slides here. I'm showing the main or basic components of the call manager. Like, the main components of the call manager are publisher, subscriber, and the TFTP server. So these are the basic servers which must be there on the cluster, right? Cluster means the group of all the call manager nodes, right? And in a cluster we have one publisher and up to 19 subscriber or TFTP server, and it depends upon the requirement. What is the size, or what is the user base, what are the locations for the customer. Accordingly we can provision subscriber and TFTP for the that environment, right? And the publisher, as per the definitions, it's a primarily having the database server where all the configuration changes are made, right? So whatever changes you are making in the cluster, whether it's in the subscriber nodes, TFTP servers, all are get written up on the publisher node, right? So it's a primarily the database of your cluster, right? And then the subscriber, which handle the call processing, replicate the database from the publisher. So all the subscriber is having the same database which it get from the publisher. So it fetch all the information from the publisher, whether what are the call routing, right? How many phones are registered in a cluster, all those information it get from the publisher node. And mainly what we do in a environment, all the registration, phone registration, we do it on the subscriber, right? And the call processing, or not call processing, the call routing things or all the other database informations, we generally use for it on the publisher node, right? So in a cluster we might have two or three subscriber where we want the phone to be registered, right? And all these informations are captured from the subscriber to the publisher. So publisher is having all the database information, right? And whatever changes we are doing on the subscriber node or TFTP node, it's get stored on every node, but mainly on the publisher node, right? And the next server is the TFTP server. uh, TFTP server provides the phone configuration file and the firmware, right? So as you know, we boot up in a phone, it gets the information, like what are the files or what are the firmware from the TFTP server, right? So if in future, if or anytime you need to update your phone firmware, you have to put the file in the TFTP server, you have to restart the TFTP services, and you have to restart the phones. And once phones get rebooted, it comes to know that latest version of the firmware is available on the TFTP server, and it download it from the TFTP server and boot it from that firmware, right? So firmware and the phone configurations are available on the TFTP server. And in a cluster you may have one or two or three, depends upon your requirement, that many TFTP server you have in a cluster or in your setup, right? So as I was saying, that there are up to 20 servers in a cluster. So um, but in a cluster we must have only one publisher, right? And up to 19 subscriber or TFTP server, right? And this is a web page of the CUCM, right? I mean, there are some tabs like system. uh, Here you will find the system configurations file, device pool. uh, all the informations are there. I will cover it on the later session. And the call routing tab is there, media resource, advanced features, devices, applications, and user management, from where you have to create the users, bulk administrations where you need to update the phones in a bulk, right? And the help tab is there, right? Yeah. So now in the next slide, I have mentioned this the architectural diagram. What are type of the architecture Cisco is providing to the customer, right? So first one is the single site cluster, as it's mentioned that it's a single site. So this type of solution we provide only for the small offices where it doesn't have any branch offices, or not having the small sites at any WAN connectivity, right? So for that site we just provide this type of solutions, that is single site cluster. And as per the descriptions, all servers, CUCM servers and IP phones are located at a physical site, and use case is suitable for small to medium enterprise where all phones are in one location, right? So you can see over here, uh, this system is having one CUCM cluster, might be publisher, subscriber 1, subscriber 2, TFTP2, TFTP1, TFTP2, right? And the application servers like Unity voicemail or cup server that are present in the same building. MCUs, gatekeeper, gateways, which is used for the PSN connectivity, that are also in the same site. And here you can see the network switches, and that is connected to the IP phones or Cisco Jabber or soft phones, right? So all the devices are placed in a single site. And the characteristics of this is low latency, typically less than 20 milliseconds round trip. That means all the subscriber nodes are reachable within 20 milliseconds, right? From other cluster. So this is a basic requirement all whenever you design your network or your voice infrastructure, right? And it's simple to set up and the management, because all the servers are at same site. It's easily to manage that, because all the dialing patterns or routing patterns or media resource allocations or the voice linked uh, configurations, all you have to do on the same cluster. And I mean same web page, you can just configure all the things. And as it doesn't have any WAN connectivity, I mean the other small site, so we doesn't have any dependency on the WAN, right? And the next is the multi-site centralized call processing. So description is like CCM cluster resides at the center site and the remote sites are connected uh, over the WAN connection. So here you can see this is, let's say, headquarter. You can see all the call manager are placed at the same site, right? And it has the branch site, branch A and branch B, and branch A and B are connected with with the main site with IP WAN connectivity, right? And here you can see that phones are placed over here, I mean the headquarter, as well as the branch A and branch B. So all phones are getting registered to one call manager that is placed in our main site, that is our headquarter, I can say. So organization with a multiple branch site or branch offices, but a single call manager can have this type of solution. And the characteristics of this setup is like IP phone at the branch site registered to the center call manager server, like branch A phones, whatever phones are there, they uh, they reach to the headquarter site via over the VPN, not sorry, over the WAN connection, right? To getting it registered over here. And in case this VPN or sorry this WAN connection get disconnected or some issue on this, if there is any failure, so we have one SRST features that is enabled on the this voice gateway, right? Via that, these phones get registered to this local voice gateway, right? It has the capability. It depends upon the what type of router you have, whether it's 3945 series of router or 8800 series of router, 44 series of router, right? It depends upon the hardware of your router. Accordingly, it can register number of phones, right? So incoming, outgoing, and some basic features will work on this environment in case of the WAN connection failure. So all phones get registered to the local voice gateway over here, and this feature is called SRST, that is survivable remote site telephony, right? And it's also easy to manage because all the configuration you have to do over here. That means on the uh, headquarter CUSIM cluster, right? And if the phones over here, they have to make any outgoing calls to the PSTN network, they can use this voice gateway where we have PSTN connectivity and make the PSTN calls. Same way, all the sites are connected to the PSTN to make the outbound calls, right? So this setup is called multi-site centralized call processing. So we have multiple sites and centralized call processor, right? And the next is multi-site distributed call processing. So this type of setup is mainly for the larger organizations or large enterprise where the they have big sites and located at different location or region, right? And they uh, have their own call manager cluster inside the office. So it's a multiple site distributed call processing, right? So here you can see the headquarter. It is having its own CUCM cluster. Branch A, it has its own CUCM cluster, and branch B, it has its own CUCM cluster, like publisher, subscriber, and TFTP server, right? And all the call routing for this site headquarter is done on this node, on this cluster, right? Similarly, all the routing, all phone registrations, all the configurations is performed on this CUSIM cluster for the branch A, and the same way all the setting has to be done on subscriber B. So here we have to make consideration of while in calling to each other site, right? Intercluster sites. Sorry. So characteristics of this is like clusters are linked via intercluster ICT trunk, that is intercluster trunk. So if you can see over here that the sites are connected with the WAN connectivity, right? So we need to create one SIP trunk in headquarter site for communicating with the branch A, and same way if we need to create same intercluster trunk for the site B. Same way we have to create this intercluster trunk from branch A to headquarter or branch A to branch B, right? And each cluster has its own CUSIM cluster, so it has capability to handle all the means all local calls, right? So whatever calls are performed from headquarter, it will use this CUSIM cluster, right? Same way for branch A and branch B, and it needs some consideration while making the intercluster calls. We have to make sure what type of digits we are sending from headquarter to branch A and headquarter to branch B. For that, we need to create the route patterns in the system, and that should we have to take care of the routing plans and other informations, right? So mainly this type of setup is used for where each site is I mean having the big uh, number of users, right? And a very large enterprise with multiple large sites, we can deploy this setup, right? And the next setup is clustering over the IP WAN. So as per the descriptions, a single CUCM cluster across multiple sites that are connected via an IP WAN with QS feature enabled, right? Use case is large enterprise with multiple large sites. So here you can see we have two sites, or actually three sites: site A, site B, and site C, right? Here on this site, you can see publisher subscriber one, TFTP one, and the site B is having subscriber two and the TFTP two, and those are communicating with each other over the IP WAN connectivity, right? So as it's mentioned that large enterprise with multiple large site, those are using this type of setup. So mainly all the phones which are here on the site A, it get registered to the subscriber which is placed on this same building, and whatever phones are there in site B, they are getting registered to subscriber 2, I mean the local subscriber which is placed in the same building, right? And as I was saying that the database, I mean publisher is having all the database, so whatever phones are there in the site A and site B, publisher is having all the information, and that information is replicated to all of the publisher nodes, sorry, all of the subscriber node as well as TFTP nodes, right? And before designing these solutions, you have to make sure that there should be minimal or less than 20 millisecond round time between the nodes, right? That is what you have to take considerations and put these things to the network team, that while designing this setup, they need minimum or minimal latency, right? And in case if this WAN or this site get isolated, that means IP WAN get failure, all the phones get registered to the subscriber over here, and it will process all the calls, right? And again it has one site, that is site C, that is the remote site that is connected with the IP WAN with the site A or site B, and all the phones which are there, it can register to subscriber A which is placed on site A, or subscriber 2 which are placed in site B, right? It depends upon your requirement where you want that phone to register, right? And for example, if these phones are registered in site A, and if there is a failure, so these phones will get move over to site B and get registered on subscriber 2, right? And that is what we have to describe or configure in call manager group while configuring the CUCM cluster. And the characteristics of this is like single point of administration for user for all the site within the cluster, because it has only one cluster, so we can configure all the phones, routing patterns, or media resources over here from one cluster only, right? And the feature transparency and shared line appearance and unified dial plan, so they can make the transfer call with inside or any of the user from A, site B, site C, right? They can make the transfer call, conference call, and also the same number can reflect on multiple phones at multiple site. That is shared line appearance, right? So that's what while designing your uh, solution, you must have to have the basic informations: how many cluster, how many cluster you need to build, and in a cluster how many publisher you can provide, oh not publisher, sorry, subscriber you can provide, and the TFTP you can provide to the customer, right? Publisher is one in a cluster, right? And up to 20 on sorry 19 subscriber or TFTP server you can provision in a cluster, and that's depend upon the customer requirement. You can provision them for the single site if the site is not big and all the sites all the user are located at same site. You can provision the single site, and if a customer is having multiple locations and the sites remote sites are not having many users, you can provide this type of solution, that is multi-site centralized call processing, where all the remote sites are connected via over the VPN, right? And the distributed call processing, if the user database is more and the sites are critical, so you can provide these type of solutions, right? Means you can make the 3 cluster across the sites, and all the phones or local processing engine are placed on the same building, right? It has its own voice gateways to connect to the PSTN, right? And each sites are connected via the via intercluster trunk, SIP trunk, right? And then the clustering over IP WAN. If you have the sites and those are not far, I mean, so not located, I mean, too far, I mean, so you have to take consideration of the latency things, right? You can provide clustering over IP WAN feature. All right, that's all for these sessions. I will prepare more sessions on the other components. What are the other components like Unity voicemail, right? And the cup server, right? How you have to design or some basic information I will start with, and then we'll deep dive in the configuration part. And I hope you like these sessions. Please subscribe and like and comments if you need any further inputs or any query, or if you need any specific topics I want to cover, right? So please do that. Thanks. Thank you. Have a nice time. Bye bye.